This is Dave Meltzer with Entrepreneurs, the Playbook. And man, am I excited because there's nothing I like talking about better than baseball. And Kendrick, he's the managing general partner of the Arizona Diamondbacks. And we share a great passion about baseball cards as well. Welcome to the Playbook, Ken.
Great to be with you.
Thank you for joining me. And, you launched this book that I saw, and I think it was about a year ago, the Diamondbacks collection, 50 of the greatest cards in sports collecting history. So I'm going to start with history. How long have you been involved in baseball cards?
Well, I started as many young boys do as an 8-year-old, collecting with my friends. Lived in a small town in West Virginia, where I grew up, and lived through until went to college. But the story with us, my buddies and I, going on every Saturday morning at the time that this all began for me as an 8-year-old, you could go and buy a package of 5 cards for a nickel and get a piece of bubble gum to boot. So our moms allowed us on a Saturday to get have a quarter, and we could walk from where we lived in our little neighborhood down to the 5 and 10 cent store in the business area nearby. We would all buy 5 packages of cards, open them all, stuff our mouths with gum, walk home, and trade the cards on the way. So it started when I was 8.
I love it. And so many other great entrepreneurs like yourself weren't as smart as you or your parents, because you actually seem to have saved some of those cards. And I have many family members who have given away millions of dollars of an asset called cards sitting in their garages or storage units. Have you been able to keep the cards from when you were 8, or were you
Yeah,
building a collection
I
later
actually
on?
have a great story on that I love to tell. Is that all of us growing up thought our mom was the best mom in the world, and that's the way I treated her, and that's what I said to her, said to my friends about her. And as an adult, I was able to officially proclaim her the best mom in the world, because she kept my cards, and all of my buddies from those days when we were 8-year-olds, their moms had destroyed theirs. So I do have all those cards from that time when I was a little boy. And fortunately, I had a younger brother. And the way that card collecting works as a young boy, you collect for a few years, and then you find other things in life. And I had a younger brother, 5 years my junior, and he collected for a period of years. So we had a collection, both mine and his, which as an adult, he granted me the possession of all of his cards and my cards. So I have about 10 years worth from when we were boys. And then, of course, I've kept collecting throughout my life.
So not only do you have the best mom, but you have the best brother as well. So that's a
Well,
double
I think
benefit.
there's no doubt of that.
That's wonderful. And I ran one of the most notable sports agencies in the world. In fact, the man who I took his job was involved with the Diamondbacks. Jeff Morad was Lee Steinberg's partner, and I was blessed to take over for Jeff when he bought into the Diamondbacks and was president of the team. But to that measure, I represented the Clemente family, and through that process of representing the family and the Clemente Award,
Oh, wonderful.
they didn't even know what the value of the collectible assets that they had. As Jackie Robinson and Roberto Clemente hold 2 prestigious places in the history, not only of sport, but especially of our country, and representing the great change and advancement that we've been able to grow and learn with here in the United States. But you have a collection that consists of 50 of the highest graded and most sought after cards. What do you think some of the distinctions, besides the PSA side, the grading of cards, which is constantly changing with digital technology and all types of other things, but beyond the quality of the cards, what is it about certain cards that make them worth so much? The characteristics of a Honus Wagner, a Jackie Robinson, a George Mikan, whoever it may be. What are those characteristics that make them so valuable?
Well, of course, you already mentioned several names that are iconic, 2 baseballers, and then Mikan in basketball. And fortunately, I have the rookie cards of all three of the people that you just mentioned. When I get asked, which I do occasionally, what is my favorite card among all of those I have? My very favorite of all cards is the Jackie Robinson rookie card, which was in 1948. There was not a card for him when he became a major leaguer in 47, but his very first baseball card was in 1948. And then I'm fortunate to also have the rookie card of Mikan, and then I have the rookie card also of Clemente. All are featured in the book you were referring to. And of course, I have great reference in particular for what Jackie Robinson meant to the game. And he is somebody, when I get the opportunity to speak and occasionally attempt to provide some inspiration to an audience, Jackie is one of those great men in life that I can quote and do as an inspiration to me and to others.
And that comprehensive narrative that you give, either in writing or in person, really has the relativity that provides this different type of inspiration. What's one of the stories that you share about some of these greats that you feel resonates today with a completely different modeled child that is overloaded with the content and stimuli compared to when you were 8 or even I was 8? They're just, overwhelmed with information. Give me an example of a story that you love to tell that really immortalizes the emotional admiration that we should have for these greats.
Well, I guess I'll tell this story. It's a story about a player who was little known, and whose card is not among those that are the most prized, and not in my book. But it's the story that I think all of us as very young people, being fans of baseball, probably have, and that is going to your first major league game and what it meant to you and what memory you had from that time. And I have the card, only one of 2 cards that were ever printed of the player that I'm about to talk about, but I was among that horde of young boys who would stand down along the railing when the players were coming off the field from practice and hoping to get an autograph, hoping to get an extreme gift would be getting a baseball. And so my story of going to my first major league game was players were walking off the field. I was in Cincinnati, which was the closest major league city. Braves were the opponent, Milwaukee Braves at the time. And the players walking off the field were, coming along where we were and sign an autograph, give me a ball, give me a ball. And this one guy kind of looked over at me and he reached into his glove and he said, "Here, kid, catch." And he tossed me a ball. And the player was little known as a player, never became a player, but became a famous guy in the world of baseball. And his name was Red Murph. Now, do you know who Red was?
I do, but I'm a baseball historian, so
and of course, Red's great achievement was after playing, he became a scout, and his famous player that he signed was one Nolan Ryan. And I remember that event in the mid 50s, just like it was yesterday. And so, I have Red's card. It's not in my treasured book, but it's among my collection. And I have Nolan's. I of course have gotten to know Nolan because he was involved active duty after playing as a team, involved in team ownership. I got to know him there. And so my story, I guess, of card related and baseball related both, is the first baseball I ever got as a little boy, tossed to me by a fringe player who became a famous legendary scout in the game.
I love that. And so many other people. I was thinking of Jim Leyritz, who I had a radio show for years with, who told me a story about Johnny Bench. He was from Kentucky, so Cincinnati again was the closest team to him. And Johnny, Jim was actually an infielder, and he had met Johnny Bench, and Johnny Bench told him, "Hey son, if you really want to be a Major League Baseball player, the easiest and fastest way to the major leagues is to be a catcher." And Jim Leyritz switched positions because Johnny Bench told him to be a catcher, and his dad, was furious, saying, "You're a shortstop, Jim." And as you know, he ended up doing fairly well in the league as well. Now,
Well, not only did he do fairly well, that's modest. My great memory of Johnny Bench, my dad was a diehard Reds fan. And after I'd become an adult and the big red machine was around, I was able to arrange to meet my dad, who lived in West Virginia still. I lived in the Washington, D.C. area, and I arranged a weekend to meet my father in Cincinnati to see the big red machine play featuring Johnny Bench. So it's a great memory with my father, the last time we were ever together at a major league game.
Which means everything. And I was born in Akron, Ohio, and mom was from Dayton. So all the they called them Red Stockings fans in the
Yes.
60s and 70s, and really enjoyed the big red machine in 76, especially with one of the greatest teams ever to be field. But there's some entrepreneurial lessons in cards. I use to teach my own children the collectibles that I have, and especially trading cards, to teach about entrepreneurship in perceived value and bottom line. What are some of the key takeaways, or one of the key takeaways, if you wouldn't mind, in the entrepreneurial perspective? Because obviously you're a very successful business person, a great entrepreneur. I imagine there must have been some lessons that you've taken with you from your early days of trading cards that you still maybe even utilize today as a business person or an entrepreneur.
Well, of course, in any world of collectibles, both scarcity of the collectible and quality of the collectible are elements. So the book that you referred to is all cards that are highly graded. In the case of many of them, one of a kind at that grade level, and that drives value. Not only the player who he may have been, how great of a player he was, how there are a few like Nolan Ryan, even in the Nolan Ryan setting, he was a rookie in 1968 or 69, and there is only one Gem Mint 10 card of Nolan, and I'm fortunate to own it. And so a model of my collecting in terms of looking at how do you build value is, find the very best and find things that are rare. And if you can find a great player and one of, you're onto something. And value is contained therein. And then the market itself, of course, the recent years have been the rising tide lift all boats market, where all cards almost across the entirety of all cards have increased in value. Of course, those that are the more unique, the more famous, the more rare have increased at a greater rate than the more average card, if you will. So the model of investing in anything is, quality and scarcity, both.
Yeah, I played that game. I was after I left Lee Steinberg, business partners with Warren Moon, and I probably have 10,000 Warren Moon cards in mint condition. And obviously Warren carries that spirit of excellence that's reflected from a lot of the most valuable cards. But unfortunately, he was so popular during the time that football cards were so popular, they just printed too many of Warren Moon. So we don't have the same value, especially in the 80s with Topps and others, as you know. Last question. You obviously have a lot of, big partners in all types of sports, but everyone in your organization really is like-minded when it comes to giving back. And it historically has been true of, my friends Dale Jensen and others that are there in Arizona, that and it's a real tradition that I am very enthusiastic about. But you really lead the way when it comes to your foundation and the mission, not just for you, but all your partners as well. What type of impact are you having, the larger impact for so many years, having such a primary focus on giving back to the community?
Well, thanks for the compliment on our giving back. As it happens, we're talking today, just 2 days after we had our annual Evening on the Diamond charity event, a dinner and an auction. And on Saturday night, we were able to raise nearly $3.5 million for our foundation, and that's an extraordinary amount for an evening like that one. But our whole foundation is a centerpiece to the Diamondback organization. The phrase we use, D-backs give back. And we have worked very hard at making that a part of our culture, with all of our employees being engaged and giving back, all of our players and coaches. On Saturday night when we were raising money, you couldn't help, if you're me, but have a smile on your face when you see the paddle raise and a ball player giving to a very worthy cause, and the manager of the team giving, and then those at the more high end of the pecking order buying pricey trips that they're going to enjoy going on, but benefiting charity from doing so. So we have fun doing it. It's a core part of our organization, and it is really a centerpiece of who we want to be, because I think a sports franchise is, and we all say this, but you need to live what you say, and that is, we're a community asset, and we need to recognize that, and need to embrace that, and need to use that platform that we're lucky to have to embrace the community in ways that our economic opportunity provides for us.
Well, you have provided, just like Jackie Robinson and Honus Wagner, an iconic journey in three areas that I think so important in entrepreneurship, as you encompass someone that, when people ask me, who do I look up to, and as an entrepreneur, and although I think now the world's changed so much, not only with baseball cards, Ken, I think my most valuable, and I, ran a pretty notable sports agency with Lee, so I have some really valuable stuff, including Clemente, but I have a poster of a guy named Gary Vaynerchuk, his first book, number 1 of 500, of Crushing It, and someone offered me $1 million for my signed poster, and I said,
Wow.
what world is someone offering me more money for the Gary Vaynerchuk poster than a Tony Gwynn? He made 394 bats when he batted 394, and I have number 1 of that bat, and someone offered me more for a Gary Vaynerchuk poster. But nonetheless, you are definitely an iconic leader for young entrepreneurs to look up to, of how to do 3 things. 1, how to make a lot of money to live in abundance, but 2, how to help a lot of people with what we make, and of course, something you and I both share, how to have a lot of fun by doing that, by making money and helping people. And you certainly exemplify that. And I'm just so honored that you shared your wisdom here with me, Ken. Thank you for joining me.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. I should, you of course mentioned earlier, and I'd like to just add my one thought that I think something we could all think about and should think about is one of the most famous things that our legendary player Jackie Robinson said, and his most famous of all his quotes, and he had a number of very important things that he had to say through his life, but I think the most significant thing he ever said, and I have it in my head and don't ever forget it, and that is, he said, none of our lives are important other than in the impact that we have on the lives of others. And think about that. And that's what you would want us, that's what I would want to do, is have a positive impact on the lives of others. And to the degree that you can do that, you can feel good about your life.
That is beautiful. And my favorite quote goes alongside with that is, be kind to your future self and do good deeds. Kendrick continually does good deeds to help his community and so many others. Managing director, partner of the Arizona Diamondbacks. Thank you so much for joining me.